She thought she had won his heart until his memories started coming back. The movie begins with Jim, a wealthy businessman, on his way to work while handling a series of intense office calls. When Chioma sets her eyes on him, she is instantly captivated by his handsome looks. Jim introduces himself to his new maid, Chioma, and gives her strict instructions to be competent and follow the meal schedule. Later that day, Chioma is left alone in the massive house and is immediately starstruck by Jim's wealth and good looks. She convinces herself that she is wife material and believes her village people have finally blessed her. However, she realizes her current appearance is not giving and vows to transform herself to catch Jim's attention. Later that day, a seamstress arrives to take Chioma's measurements for her work uniform. Later that evening, Jim returns home exhausted from work, only to find Chioma waiting for him wearing heavy, dramatic makeup. Instead of being impressed, Jim is annoyed and sarcastically asks whether the makeup helps her do her job better before sending her away so he can freshen up. While Jim is having dinner, Chioma does everything possible to make him notice her figure. Jim briefly wonders what she is up to, but chooses not to pay her any attention. The next day, Chioma attempts to recreate a romantic movie scene by barging into Jim's bedroom with breakfast in bed. Jim is furious at the intrusion, asks if she is normal, and orders her to take the food to the dining table immediately. Later that morning, Jim rushes off for a meeting, completely ignoring Chioma's attempt to prove her wife material qualities by offering to bring him lunch at work. Frustrated, Chioma wonders why he refuses to give her even the slightest chance. 2 weeks later, Chioma returns from the market and meets Jim having a meeting with one of his male staff members. She keeps smiling and staring at Jim throughout the meeting, making the staff member uncomfortable. After Chioma leaves, the staff member tells Jim that Chioma has been staring at him strangely, but Jim brushes it off, believing she is simply happy because he pays her salary. The next morning, Chioma is overjoyed after receiving a salary credit alert on her phone. Later that day, Chioma decides to invest in herself to get what she wants. She goes to the market and buys expensive London hair and fashionable clothes, determined to begin her mission of winning Jim's heart. Later that evening, Jim returns home looking completely drained. Chioma, now dressed in her new outfit, proudly tells him she has prepared a delicious meal and even offers to give him a massage. Jim finally reaches his breaking point, warning her that she is only employed to cook and clean. He threatens to throw her out of the house if she ever attempts such nonsense again. That same night, Jim is on an important business call in the dining area when Chioma deliberately pretends to rearrange the chairs, hoping he will notice her. Jim pays her no attention and heads upstairs to his room, leaving Chioma disappointed. Some nights later, a major turning point occurs when Jim is involved in a serious accident. Chioma sees the news online and immediately begins to panic. The next day at the hospital, the doctor informs Chioma that Jim has amnesia and cannot remember his name or his family. Seeing what she believes is a golden opportunity, Chioma bursts into dramatic tears and lies to the doctor, claiming she is the love of Jim's life. Will Chioma take advantage of Jim's memory loss, or will her conscience stop her? Later that day, Chioma returns to the house to pack some clothes for Jim. As she gathers his belongings, she realizes this is the perfect opportunity to present herself as his girlfriend, since he cannot remember anything. However, she decides to wait until he returns home before telling him the lie. A month later, Chioma brings the memory-impaired Jim back home. She convinces him that they are deeply in love, and with no memories to contradict her story, Jim slowly begins to believe her. Later that night, Chioma pushes the deception even further during dinner by insisting they eat from the same plate and use the same fork because their love is so strong. Jim feels confused and uncomfortable, asking for his own plate, but Chioma believes she must take every opportunity to make him truly fall in love with her. Later, while washing the dishes, Chioma begins to feel uneasy at the thought of Jim eventually discovering that she has deceived him. How long can she keep such a dangerous secret? Later that night, Jim admits he is afraid of being alone and asks Chioma to sleep in the same bed with him. Chioma is shocked yet thrilled as she lies beside him, silently praying that this dream never comes to an end. The The next morning, Chioma wakes up smiling as she finds herself wrapped in Jim's arms. Some days later, one of Jim's staff members visits the house with documents for him to sign. The staff member is surprised to hear Jim referring to Chioma as his babe and asks if they are dating. Jim confidently confirms that they are. The next morning, Jim is already talking about pending contracts and financial approvals, but Chioma urges him to listen to the doctor and focus on resting. Still unable to remember anything, Jim asks Chioma to tell him their love story, how they met and how he fell in love with her. Seizing the opportunity, Chioma spins a romantic lie, claiming that Jim fell for her finesse and beautiful eyes. She even tells him he once said she was exactly the kind of woman his late mother had always wanted him to marry. A week later, a surprise visitor arrives, Chloe, Jim's younger sister and only remaining family. She is heartbroken to learn about his amnesia, but the real shock comes when Jim introduces Chioma as his baby girl and girlfriend. Chloe is confused because she believed Chioma was only the maid, but for the sake of Jim's health, she chooses to remain silent. Later, in the kitchen, Chioma worries about the lie she will tell Chloe regarding how she and Jim supposedly fell in love. Chloe soon confronts her, asking how their relationship really began. Without hesitation, Chioma continues the deception, claiming that Jim fell in love with her after watching her work with such kindness and dedication. To Chioma's surprise, Chloe promises to support their relationship, telling her they look good together. Later that night, things become awkward when Jim tries to get intimate. Terrified that her lies will eventually be exposed, Chioma tells him she is still a virgin. Although surprised, Jim respects her decision and promises to wait until she is ready. The next day, Chloe tells Chioma that she will be taking Jim to his bank, warehouse, and office, hoping the familiar places will trigger his memory. While they are out, Jim and Chloe discuss his relationship with Chioma. Jim admits that although everything feels a little strange, he genuinely believes Chioma is a good person who makes him happy. Chloe then shares their painful family history, explaining that their parents died in 2010 and that Jim has been taking care of her ever since. Later that day, Jim and Chloe return home carrying bags filled with expensive clothes, gifts, and other goodies for Chioma. Overwhelmed by their kindness, Chioma breaks down in tears of joy, convinced that her plan is working perfectly. Later that day, Jim finds Chioma crying in her room and asks what is wrong. She tells him she is simply overwhelmed by everything he and Chloe have been doing for her. Jim comforts her, wipes away her tears, and reassures her of how much he loves her. The next day, while Jim and Chioma are enjoying a romantic moment together at the dining table, Chloe watches them from a distance, smiling as she admires what she believes is their beautiful relationship. Later that night, Jim and Chioma finally share an intimate moment together. Could this one night change everything between them? The next day, the plan hits a major snag. While going through his Instagram messages, Jim discovers messages from a woman named Nina who calls him baby and asks why he has been unreachable. Chloe immediately remembers that Nina is Jim's girlfriend, who left for London 2 years earlier to pursue her master's degree. Confused and disturbed, Jim begins to wonder if he had been dating 2 women at the same time. From the staircase, Chioma secretly overhears their conversation and realizes they may be getting closer to discovering the truth. A few days later, Chloe notices that Chioma has become unusually quiet and emotional. Moments later, Chioma suddenly feels nauseous and rushes away to vomit, prompting Chloe to follow and check on her. Wanting to comfort her, Jim makes a life-changing promise. He tells Chioma that he will travel to her village, meet her family, and begin preparations for their marriage. Just as everyone begins celebrating the exciting news, the real Nina suddenly walks through the front door, freshly returned from London, demanding to know what is happening. Later that day, a chaotic confrontation erupts. Nina insists that she is Jim's true girlfriend, while Chioma refuses to back down. Overwhelmed by the stress and confusion, Jim develops a severe headache, forcing Chloe to escort Nina out of the house to protect his health. Later that night, Chioma begins to panic as she realizes the truth is dangerously close to being exposed, especially now that she is pregnant with Jim's child. Feeling sorry for her, Chloe tells Chioma that she never knew Jim had been dating both her and Nina. Just then, Jim walks in and lovingly comforts Chioma. Later that night, Jim experiences his first genuine memory flash. He suddenly remembers Chioma arriving at the house for the first time as his maid and recalls the breakfast in bed incident, where he angrily called her not normal. Terrified, Chioma silently prays that he forgets everything again, even as she reveals that she is carrying his child. Will Jim recover all his memories before Chioma has the chance to tell him the truth herself? A few days later, the drama reaches its boiling point when Jim suddenly collapses. When he regains consciousness, his memory has fully returned. He immediately recognizes Nina and begins asking about his business meetings. In that moment, Chioma realizes the game is over. Overcome with guilt, she feels trapped by the consequences of her lies and the pregnancy she is carrying. Later that day, Chioma enters Jim's room to serve him a glass of water. She is heartbroken when she sees Nina kissing him. Unable to bear the pain, she quietly walks away and retreats to her room, where she breaks down in tears. Later that day, a massive confrontation erupts in the house. Unable to carry the burden of her conscience any longer, Chioma finally confesses everything. She admits that she lied about being Jim's girlfriend because she had fallen in love with him. Disgusted, Nina demands that Chioma terminate the pregnancy immediately. However, Chloe firmly opposes the idea, declaring that the baby is her niece or nephew and that the child will never be aborted. The next day, Chioma is deep in thought in the kitchen, wondering what to do next, when Nina walks in holding a knife and some oranges. The sight immediately frightens Chioma. Fearing that more trouble lies ahead, she decides she should leave the house. However, she struggles with the decision because she wants her child to grow up knowing its father. Later that day, Chioma walks past Jim and Chloe. After she leaves, Jim admits to Chloe that he has been feeling something for Chioma, but he cannot make sense of his emotions. Chloe asks if he is falling in love with her, but Jim quickly dismisses the idea, insisting that he could never fall for his maid. Just then, Nina walks in and passionately kisses Jim, leaving him even more confused about his feelings. Some nights later, Chioma enters Jim's room to make his bed. Jim cannot take his eyes off her, and he silently wonders how it is possible to have feelings for both Nina and Chioma at the same time. The next day, Nina confronts Chioma and orders her to leave Jim's house immediately. Through tears, Chioma begs for mercy, admitting that she made a terrible mistake, but explaining that she has stayed because of her unborn child. Just as Nina is about to attack her, Chloe steps in and rescues Chioma. After Nina storms off, Chloe tells Chioma that it is time to tell Jim the whole truth and accept whatever decision he chooses to make. The following day, after hearing the entire truth, Jim is devastated that Chioma took advantage of his memory loss. Nina interrupts, insisting that Chioma should terminate the pregnancy. Jim immediately rejects the idea and decides that he will rent an apartment for Chioma until the baby is born, after which they can go their separate ways. Unwilling to accept his decision, Nina demands that Jim choose between her and Chioma. Before Jim can respond, the situation takes a shocking turn as Nina finally reveals her true colors. Instead of fighting for their relationship, she boasts that she already has a better replacement waiting for her in London, and mocks Jim for choosing to remain in a godforsaken hot country. Jim is stunned to discover that while she had been accusing him of being unfaithful, she had actually been cheating on him throughout her 2 years abroad. Furious, Nina storms out, leaving the house in complete chaos. Has Jim been blaming the wrong person all along? Later that day, Chloe has a heartfelt conversation with Jim. She reminds him that although Chioma made a terrible mistake, she is still a good person who simply longed to be loved. Chloe encourages him to forgive her, saying that some beautiful things in life do not begin perfectly, and urges him not to ignore the genuine feelings he has developed for Chioma. The next day, Chloe prepares to leave the house. Before she departs, Chioma sincerely thanks her for all the love, kindness, and support she has shown her. Chloe smiles warmly and tells Chioma that she deserves every bit of it. A few days later, Jim proves that he truly has a heart of gold. He finds Chioma struggling with severe morning sickness and gently comforts her, assuring her that she no longer needs to apologize for the past. He tells her that she is no longer his maid, but the mother of his unborn child, and that he intends to take care of both of them. The next day, Jim brings a new maid into the house. He introduces Chioma as the lady of the house and instructs the new maid to report directly to her and keep the house spotless so Chioma does not have to stress herself. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Chioma thanks God for showing her mercy, even though her journey began with lies. A few months later, Chioma is heavily pregnant. Jim surprises her with a bouquet of flowers and affectionately calls her Pookie. Although he admits that his words may not come out perfectly because of everything they have been through, he sincerely tells her that he loves her with all his heart and cannot imagine spending a single day without her. Some days later, a private tutor begins teaching Chioma at home. Jim watches from a distance with a proud smile as she eagerly learns. The next day, Jim and Chioma enjoy a peaceful evening walk together. A month later, in a breathtaking final moment, Jim gets down on one knee and asks Chioma to marry him. Overwhelmed with tears of joy, Chioma happily says yes, proving that even the most desperate mistakes can sometimes lead to a genuine love story. Can true love really be born from forgiveness, redemption, and second chances? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more captivating movies from us. Until we meet again, goodbye.